Focus is the return of power from the outside world back to the self. Most people do not realize how much of their energy is constantly flowing outward. Attention is spent on opinions, reactions, comparisons, expectations, and imagined judgments. Every glance toward the outside world becomes a quiet transaction where power is exchanged for validation, reassurance, or control. Over time, this outward pull fragments the self. A person may look active, expressive, and engaged, yet internally feel depleted, restless, and disconnected. When focus is lost externally, identity becomes dependent. Mood rises and falls based on responses. Confidence fluctuates based on recognition. Direction shifts based on approval. The self no longer stands as a stable center, but becomes a mirror reflecting whatever stands in front of it. This is not weakness by nature, but it is vulnerability without awareness. Power cannot live where attention is scattered. Returning focus to the self is not an act of withdrawal from life. It is an act of reclamation. It begins with noticing where attention habitually goes. Who occupies the mind when there is silence? What situations trigger emotional urgency? Which outcomes feel necessary for inner peace? These observations reveal the leaks. Wherever attention goes compulsively, power follows. Focus does not demand control over the world. It demands discipline over perception. The moment a person stops reacting automatically, a gap appears. In that gap, choice is restored. Instead of responding from impulse, one responds from intention. This shift seems subtle, but it changes everything. A focused mind is not louder, it is steadier. It does not chase certainty, it cultivates clarity. When focus turns inward, the nervous system begins to regulate. Breathing deepens. Thoughts slow. Emotions no longer escalate so quickly. The body recognizes safety, not from external guarantees, but from internal presence. This is why focus feels grounding. It returns a person to their own center of gravity. Many confuse focus with obsession or effort. True focus is subtractive. It removes excess, it releases unnecessary mental movement. It simplifies. A focused individual does not carry every opinion into the heart. They observe without absorbing. They listen without surrendering authority over their inner state. Power grows where attention is consistent. When energy is invested in self-awareness, skill building, emotional regulation, and physical well-being, the self becomes fortified. Decisions come from clarity rather than urgency. Boundaries form naturally, not through confrontation, but through alignment. What no longer resonates simply loses access. The outside world constantly invites reaction. News, relationships, social dynamics, and expectations compete for attention. Each invitation asks for a piece of energy. Focus teaches discernment. Not every invitation requires a response. Not every emotion deserves expression. Not every thought deserves belief. As focus deepens, dependence weakens. Approval becomes optional. Validation becomes internal. Comparison loses relevance. The self no longer needs to be measured against others because it is rooted in its own direction. This is where power consolidates. It stops being borrowed and starts being owned. Returning focus to the self also reveals patterns previously hidden by distraction. Habits become visible. Emotional triggers expose unresolved beliefs. Repeated conflicts point to internal misalignment rather than external enemies. This awareness can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is not danger. It is information. Focus allows information to be processed rather than avoided. A person who is focused does not rush to fix everything outside. They adjust what is within reach first: posture, breath, tone, thought, intention. These internal shifts ripple outward. Interactions change without force. Outcomes improve without manipulation. Respect increases without demand. Power returned to the self creates quiet confidence. Not the confidence of dominance, but of stability. The kind that does not announce itself. The kind that does not need to prove. Others sense this steadiness and respond accordingly. Some feel drawn, some feel unsettled. Both reactions confirm the presence of centered energy. Focus also restores time. When attention is no longer fragmented, moments expand. Presence sharpens perception. Life feels less rushed not because there is less to do, but because the mind is no longer divided. Action becomes efficient. Rest becomes restorative. This return of power is gradual. It is practiced daily through small acts of attention. Choosing silence over reaction. Choosing awareness over assumption. Choosing alignment over approval. Each choice strengthens the internal axis. Over time, the self becomes less influenced by external turbulence. When focus is sustained, the outside world no longer dictates inner weather. Circumstances may change, but the center remains intact. This is not detachment from life, but intimacy with it from a position of strength. Power does not shout. It does not chase. It resides quietly where attention is rooted, where awareness is disciplined, where the self is no longer outsourced to the unpredictable movements of the external world. Silence is not weakness, it is emotional discipline. Many people associate silence with fear, suppression, or the inability to defend oneself. This misunderstanding comes from a culture that rewards immediate reaction and constant expression. Speaking quickly is often mistaken for strength, and restraint is misread as submission. In reality, silence requires far more control than reaction. To remain silent when provoked demands awareness, regulation, and intention. Emotional discipline begins with recognizing impulses without obeying them. Every emotion carries energy, and that energy seeks expression. Anger wants release, fear wants reassurance, pride wants recognition. Silence does not deny these emotions, it contains them. Containment is not repression, it is mastery. A disciplined person allows emotion to rise, observes it, and decides when and how it will be expressed, if at all. Weakness reacts automatically. Discipline chooses timing. When someone speaks in the heat of emotion, they surrender authority to the moment. Words spoken from intensity often reveal more than intended and resolve less than hoped. Silence interrupts this cycle. It creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, clarity forms. Silence protects energy. Every explanation, defense, or justification costs something. Many people exhaust themselves trying to be understood by those who are not listening. Silence withdraws energy from unproductive exchanges. It prevents emotional leakage. What is not constantly explained remains intact. Emotional discipline is the ability to tolerate discomfort without escaping it through reaction. Silence forces presence. Without words, there is no distraction. One must feel the emotion fully without projecting it outward. This internal processing strengthens resilience. Over time, emotions lose their urgency. They become information rather than commands. Silence also reveals truth. When you stop speaking, others fill the space. Their intentions, insecurities, and motivations surface without effort. People often reveal more in response to silence than to confrontation. Silence acts as a mirror. It does not argue. It reflects. Those who rely on noise fear silence because silence removes control. Arguments can be manipulated. Words can be twisted. Silence cannot be easily exploited. It refuses engagement on unstable terms. This refusal is often mistaken for weakness by those who depend on reaction to feel powerful. Discipline is not passive. Silence is an active choice. It requires strength to resist the urge to correct, defend, or prove. The ego wants to be seen and validated. Silence denies the ego immediate gratification. This denial is training. Each moment of restraint reinforces self-command. Silence also preserves dignity. When emotions are exposed prematurely, they become vulnerable to misuse. Silence keeps inner processes protected until clarity is achieved. A disciplined person does not reveal their inner state to every observer. They choose carefully where and when to speak. There is a difference between being unheard and choosing not to speak. The first is disempowering. The second is sovereign. Silence chosen consciously shifts the balance of power inward. The individual is no longer reacting to external pressure, but acting from internal alignment. Emotional discipline through silence also refines communication. When words are used sparingly, they carry weight. A person who does not speak unnecessarily is listened to when they do. Their voice becomes deliberate rather than reactive. This creates influence without force. Silence challenges the impulse to win arguments. Winning an argument rarely produces peace. It often creates distance, resentment, or escalation. Silence prioritizes inner stability over external victory. This priority changes outcomes. Conflicts dissolve when one side stops feeding them. Many fear silence because they believe it means losing ground. In truth, silence often causes the situation to recalibrate. Without resistance, pressure dissipates. Without reaction, provocation loses momentum. Silence allows unstable dynamics to collapse under their own weight. Emotional discipline also means recognizing when expression is necessary. Silence is not permanent withdrawal. It is selective engagement. A disciplined person speaks when words serve clarity, resolution, or growth. They remain silent when words would only inflame, confuse, or drain. Silence strengthens self-trust. Each time one resists the urge to react, confidence in one's inner guidance grows. There is no longer a need to immediately justify or explain. The self becomes anchored internally rather than externally affirmed. Over time, silence transforms relationships. Those who respect boundaries adjust. Those who seek control grow uncomfortable. This filtering effect is natural. Silence exposes relational dynamics without confrontation. Emotional discipline cultivated through silence creates inner order. Thoughts become organized. Emotions stabilize. Actions align with values rather than impulses. Life begins to respond differently to a person who is no longer predictable in their reactions. Silence does not mean absence. It is presence without noise. It is strength without display. It is control without domination. It is the quiet authority of a person who has learned that not every feeling needs a voice, not every moment needs an explanation, and not every battle needs to be fought. Detachment removes desperation, and desperation blocks flow. Desperation is not always loud or obvious. Often it appears as overthinking, over-explaining, rushing, or an anxious need for outcomes to unfold in a particular way. It is the inner tension that arises when peace becomes conditional, when happiness is tied to a result, a response, or another person's behavior. Desperation begins to form. This inner state quietly interferes with clarity and balance. Flow requires openness. It moves through spaces that are relaxed, receptive, and stable. Desperation tightens those spaces. It contracts the mind and body. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts loop. Attention narrows. In this contracted state, perception distorts. Choices are made from fear of loss rather than alignment with truth. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference or emotional coldness. In reality, detachment is emotional sovereignty. It is caring without clinging. It is participating without grasping. Detachment allows involvement without entanglement. When a person is detached, they are present but not dependent. Desperation arises when the self believes it is incomplete without something external. This belief creates urgency. Urgency pressures interactions. Pressure disrupts rhythm. Rhythm is essential for flow. When rhythm is lost, resistance appears. Detachment dissolves urgency by restoring inner sufficiency. When a person knows they can remain whole regardless of outcome, the need to force results fades. Actions become cleaner. Words become simpler. The nervous system relaxes. This relaxed state allows intuition to guide decisions rather than fear. Flow is a state of alignment between intention and action. It cannot coexist with grasping. Grasping pulls energy forward into imagined futures. Detachment anchors energy in the present. From presence, awareness expands. Opportunities are noticed rather than chased. Desperation also creates emotional noise. It amplifies doubt and weakens patience. In this state, signals from reality are misread. Neutral events feel threatening. Delays feel like rejection. Silence feels like abandonment. Detachment quiets this noise. It restores perspective. When detached, a person can wait without anxiety. Waiting becomes observation rather than suffering. This patience allows situations to reveal their natural direction. What aligns stays. What does not falls away. No force is required. Desperation seeks control. Detachment allows movement. Control restricts options. Movement increases them. When one stops gripping outcomes, possibilities multiply. Flow responds to flexibility, not force. Detachment also protects dignity. Desperation erodes it. Overpursuit, overexposure, and emotional bargaining all stem from fear of loss. These behaviors push away what is sought. Detachment removes the push. It replaces it with steadiness. Flow responds to steadiness. It favors those who move with ease rather than urgency. Ease is not laziness. It is trust in timing. Trust does not mean passivity. It means action without anxiety. Detachment sharpens perception. Without emotional distortion, reality can be seen as it is. Red flags become clear. Genuine interest is recognizable. Misalignment no longer requires justification. Clarity replaces confusion. Desperation often disguises itself as effort. People believe trying harder will produce results. But effort fueled by fear lacks intelligence. Detachment restores intelligent effort. Actions become strategic rather than frantic. When detached, rejection loses its sting. Failure becomes feedback rather than a verdict. Loss becomes redirection rather than punishment. This resilience sustains momentum. Momentum is essential for flow. Flow is disrupted when self-worth is at stake. Detachment separates self-worth from outcomes. A person can engage fully without attaching their identity to results. This separation is freedom. Detachment also deepens presence in relationships. Without desperation, interactions feel lighter. There is space for authenticity. There is no pressure to perform or persuade. Connection becomes mutual rather than forced. The absence of desperation invites reciprocity. People respond to calm confidence. They resist neediness. Detachment creates magnetic energy, not because it withholds, but because it is self-contained. Flow is natural. It does not need to be summoned. It emerges when resistance is removed. Detachment removes resistance by releasing the need to control. In this release, life begins to move unimpeded. Desperation blocks flow because it interrupts trust. Detachment restores trust in self, in timing, and in process. With trust, tension dissolves. With tension gone, movement becomes effortless. Detachment does not mean disengagement from desire. It means freedom from dependency. Desire without attachment remains pure. It motivates without constricting. It inspires without consuming. When desperation dissolves, the body relaxes. The mind clears. Actions align. Outcomes unfold with less friction. Flow returns not because circumstances change, but because the inner state no longer resists what is unfolding. When attention is withdrawn, alignment begins. Attention is one of the most powerful currencies a human being possesses. Wherever it rests, energy follows. Wherever energy flows consistently, patterns are reinforced. Many people unknowingly give their attention away to distractions, conflicts, expectations, and imagined futures. In doing so, they fragment their inner state and lose connection with their own rhythm. Misalignment does not usually come from wrong action, but from divided attention. When the mind is pulled in multiple directions, intention weakens. Decisions become reactive. The body senses inconsistency and responds with tension. Attention scattered outward creates inner disorder. Withdrawing attention is not avoidance. It is intentional redirection. It is the choice to stop feeding what drains clarity. When attention is withdrawn from noise, drama, and external validation, the inner landscape quiets. In that quiet, signals become clearer. The self begins to recalibrate. Alignment is the state where thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction. It cannot be forced. It emerges naturally when interference is removed. Constant attention to external stimuli interferes with this process. Opinions distort self-perception. Comparison erodes confidence. Reaction disrupts presence. When attention returns inward, awareness sharpens. The body becomes a guide rather than an afterthought. Subtle cues are noticed. Fatigue signals boundaries. Discomfort reveals misalignment. Ease indicates resonance. These signals are often drowned out by excessive outward focus. Attention withdrawal creates space. In that space, clarity organizes itself. Priorities reorder. What once felt urgent loses importance. What truly matters gains weight. This reordering is alignment in motion. Many people fear withdrawing attention because they believe it means disengagement or loss. In truth, it restores autonomy. Attention is power. Choosing where it goes is sovereignty. When attention is constantly pulled outward, the self becomes reactive. When it is anchored inward, the self becomes directive. Alignment also requires patience. When attention is withdrawn, there may be an initial sense of emptiness. This is not absence, it is reset. The mind has been conditioned to constant stimulation. Silence feels unfamiliar, yet within this stillness, coherence forms. External chaos thrives on attention. Conflict persists because it is fed. Anxiety grows because it is rehearsed. When attention is removed, these patterns weaken. What is no longer energized begins to dissolve. Alignment is not about perfection. It is about congruence. Acting in ways that reflect inner truth rather than external pressure. With attention withdrawn from approval, seeking authenticity surfaces. Decisions become simpler. The need to justify fades. Attention withdrawal also deepens intuition. Intuition speaks softly. It cannot compete with noise. When the volume of external input is lowered, intuitive insight becomes accessible. This guidance feels calm rather than urgent. It aligns rather than agitates. When attention is centered, emotional regulation improves. Reactions slow. Triggers lose intensity. This emotional stability further reinforces alignment. The inner state becomes predictable to itself, even if the outer world remains unpredictable. Alignment attracts coherence externally. Relationships adjust, some dissolve, others strengthen. This is not loss, but refinement. What aligns stays. What conflicts falls away. No force is required. With attention withdrawn, time feels different. Moments expand. Presence increases. The mind is no longer rushing ahead or replaying the past. Action emerges from clarity rather than compulsion. Alignment also restores integrity. Words match actions. Values guide choices. There is less internal negotiation. This consistency builds self-trust. Self-trust reduces hesitation. Hesitation is replaced by calm decisiveness. Attention withdrawal teaches discernment. Not everything deserves engagement. Not every emotion requires expression. Not every thought reflects truth. This discernment protects energy. As alignment strengthens, effort decreases. Life feels less resistant. Opportunities appear without pursuit. Solutions arise without strain. This ease is often mistaken for luck. When attention is reclaimed, the self no longer bends to every external force. It stands grounded. From this grounding, movement becomes intentional. Direction becomes clear. Alignment is sustained not by constant effort, but by consistent attention placement. Each moment of withdrawal from distraction reinforces inner order. When attention is no longer scattered, the self operates as a unified system. Thoughts support actions. Emotions inform without overwhelming. Behavior reflects intention. Withdrawing attention is an ongoing practice. It is chosen repeatedly in small moments. Each choice strengthens alignment. Each return inward deepens coherence. When attention is withdrawn, alignment begins not as a sudden shift, but as a gradual settling into one's own rhythm, where the inner world no longer competes with the outer, and clarity emerges from the absence of interference. Inner order creates outer luck. What many call luck is often the visible result of an invisible arrangement within. When the inner world is chaotic, the outer world mirrors that disorder through missed opportunities, poor timing, and repeated friction. When the inner world becomes organized, life appears to respond with ease, coincidence, and favorable outcomes. This is not chance, but alignment expressed through circumstance. Inner order begins with clarity of thought. When thoughts are scattered, decisions lack coherence. Actions become inconsistent. The body senses this inconsistency and responds with tension. From tension, perception narrows. Narrow perception overlooks opportunity. When the mind is orderly, perception widens. Possibilities become visible. Emotional order is equally important. Unregulated emotions create volatility. Volatility disrupts judgment. A person may act impulsively or hesitate unnecessarily. Emotional order does not mean emotional suppression. It means emotional literacy, recognizing feelings without being controlled by them. This regulation stabilizes behavior. Behavior rooted in inner order is predictable to itself. Values guide action. Boundaries are clear. Time is respected. Energy is conserved. These internal structures create reliability. Reliability compounds. People trust those who are consistent. Opportunities gravitate toward those who are steady. Luck often appears as being in the right place at the right time. Inner order improves timing. When the mind is calm, signals are noticed. When emotions are balanced, patience allows for waiting. When actions are intentional, movement aligns with opportunity. This convergence looks like luck. Disorder inside creates noise. Noise disrupts intuition. Intuition is sensitive to internal clutter. When the inner environment is quiet and structured, intuition becomes accessible. Decisions are guided by clarity rather than fear or impulse. Inner order also sharpens focus. Attention is no longer pulled in multiple directions. Tasks are completed. Goals are pursued with consistency. Progress accumulates. This accumulation attracts favorable conditions. Many people chase luck by manipulating external conditions. They network aggressively, force outcomes, or mimic others' paths. Without inner order, these efforts lack foundation. Inner order creates stability. Stability attracts support. Outer luck often involves other people's cooperation. Cooperation is influenced by trust and presence. A person with inner order communicates clearly. They listen effectively. They respond rather than react. These qualities invite collaboration. Inner order reduces self-sabotage. Conflicting desires often derail progress. When values are clarified, decisions align. There is less internal conflict. Less conflict means fewer mistakes born from confusion. Luck also manifests as resilience. Setbacks do not derail momentum. Inner order provides structure during uncertainty. Plans adjust without panic. Emotional balance maintains perspective. Time management reflects inner order. Priorities are respected. Energy is allocated wisely. This efficiency creates space. In that space, opportunity arises. Outer circumstances often reward those who are prepared. Preparation is an expression of inner order. Skills are developed. Knowledge is organized. When opportunity appears, readiness converts it into success. Inner order also influences how one is perceived. Calm confidence replaces anxiety. This presence affects interactions. People respond positively to grounded energy. Luck is often a pattern, not a single event. Patterns form from habits. Habits reflect inner order. Daily choices accumulate into trajectories. Inner order also allows for discernment. Not every opportunity is beneficial. Clarity filters distractions. Energy is invested where it matters. When inner order is present, reactions decrease, responses increase. This shift changes outcomes. Problems are addressed before they escalate. The external world is complex and unpredictable. Inner order provides a stable reference point. From stability, adaptability increases. Luck often appears when effort meets timing. Inner order improves both. Effort becomes consistent. Timing becomes intuitive. Order inside creates harmony outside because actions align with reality rather than resisting it. Resistance creates friction. Friction blocks flow. People often attribute success to fortune without acknowledging preparation, discipline, and regulation. These qualities are expressions of inner order. When inner order is cultivated, life responds with coherence. Opportunities align. Relationships stabilize. Challenges become manageable. Outer luck is the echo of inner structure. When the inner world is organized, the outer world reflects that organization through ease, support, and seemingly fortunate events that arise not from randomness, but from a self that has learned to move in harmony with life. Self-mastery makes circumstances reorganize naturally. Self-mastery is often misunderstood as control over others or dominance over situations. In truth, it is control over one's inner world. It is the ability to regulate thoughts, emotions, impulses, and behavior with awareness and consistency. When the inner world becomes ordered through self-mastery, the outer world responds by adjusting around that order. Circumstances are not static. They are fluid systems influenced by behavior, perception, and interaction. A person without self-mastery reacts impulsively. These reactions create instability. Instability invites conflict, confusion, and resistance. A person with self-mastery responds deliberately. Deliberate responses create clarity. Clarity changes the trajectory of events. Self-mastery begins with awareness. Awareness reveals patterns. Patterns show where energy is wasted and where it is effective. This understanding allows for refinement. Each refinement strengthens internal alignment. Emotional regulation is central to self-mastery. Unregulated emotions distort perception. Anger narrows focus. Fear accelerates urgency. Desire clouds judgment. Regulated emotions inform without controlling. This balance stabilizes decision-making. When decisions are stable, actions follow through. Consistency builds momentum. Momentum influences outcomes. Circumstances reorganize around predictable behavior. Predictability builds trust. Trust changes dynamics. People respond differently to someone who is steady. Opportunities are offered more readily. Conflict decreases. Collaboration increases. Self-mastery also refines communication. Words are chosen carefully. Silence is used strategically. Expression becomes intentional. This intentionality reduces misunderstanding. When self-mastery is present, boundaries are clear. Boundaries prevent overextension. Energy is conserved. Conserved energy is invested effectively. Circumstances often feel overwhelming when internal boundaries are weak. Strengthening inner boundaries reduces external pressure. What once felt chaotic becomes manageable. Self-mastery reduces reactivity. Without reactivity, external provocation loses power. Situations that once escalated now dissolve. The body reflects self-mastery. Posture stabilizes. Breath deepens. Presence strengthens. This physical expression influences interactions. Circumstances reorganize because the individual is no longer feeding disorder. Without emotional turbulence, situations stabilize. Without impulsive action, chaos subsides. Self-mastery also fosters patience. Patience allows timing to align. Rushed action often disrupts natural flow. Measured action enhances it. As self-mastery deepens, priorities clarify. Energy is directed where it matters. This focus simplifies life. Circumstances respond to consistency. Consistency creates reliability. Reliability attracts opportunity. Self-mastery also increases adaptability. Adaptability allows response to change without loss of balance. Balanced responses maintain momentum. People often attempt to change circumstances directly. Without self-mastery, these attempts are forceful and unsustainable. With self-mastery, influence becomes subtle and effective. Circumstances reorganize not because of manipulation, but because the individual's behavior no longer contradicts desired outcomes. Actions align with values. Values guide choices. Self-mastery reduces internal conflict. Reduced conflict frees energy. Freed energy fuels creativity and problem-solving. When inner resistance dissolves, outer resistance follows. Life no longer pushes back as hard. Self-mastery also enhances resilience. Setbacks are integrated rather than resisted. Learning replaces frustration. As internal order stabilizes, external complexity simplifies. Problems are addressed at their root rather than their symptoms. Circumstances often reflect unconscious patterns. Self-mastery brings these patterns into awareness and alters them through conscious choice. When habits change, environments change. When reactions change, relationships change. When perception changes, opportunity changes. Self-mastery does not guarantee comfort. It guarantees coherence. From coherence, effectiveness emerges. Circumstances reorganize naturally because life responds to alignment. Alignment is the byproduct of self-mastery. When thoughts, emotions, and actions move together, the environment adjusts in response to that coherence, creating outcomes that feel effortless not because effort is absent, but because resistance has been removed